Library.
What we've got is Mary Murset here with us, and she's going to be making some comments here on some of these pictures that she have. There's Mary Murset on the left and Tom Murset on the right. And what can you tell us about it, Mom? Wait, first of all, this is June 14th, 2001. Okay.
Okay, this is Rainey Murset and Tom Murset. And these pictures were taken just at the time we were married, August 22nd, 1942. Tom had just been commissioned as second lieutenant in the United States Air Force. And the ring that I'm wearing, my cameo ring, the black and white one, at one time was my father's, David Rainey's, stick pin. And it was very dear to me. This picture was taken up in Sacramento, California, the capital of California, and we were just on a little trip. We couldn't go very often because there was gas rationing at that time, and we had just taken a little trip to go up and see the capital, and this is right after we had been married. This is where Tom Murset was born, on Vermont Street in Buffalo, New York, February 3rd, 1917. This is in Buffalo, New York in 1922, and it looks like his dad, Fred Murset, had been out rabbit hunting, and they always had a dog. They always had some kind of a hunting dog.
And that was Buddy.
And that was Buddy. This is a picture of Tom when he was, it looks like maybe 6 months old, and of course they were still in Buffalo, New York. You take a look at those shoes. He was a beautiful baby. This is Tom and his sister Betty. There were just the two children in the family, and his sister was 7 years younger than he. This is at the ostrich farm in Pasadena, California in 1920. They were out, they didn't move to California until 1922, I believe. But this was an ostrich pulling this cart, and it was Tom and his mother, Hattie Murset. Is the three children of David William Rainey and Vida Smart Webster. I was 7 years old. I'm on the right. My brother Bill was 9, and my sister Dean was 4. And this was at our first house in California on Marymount Street in Los Angeles. This is my dad, David William Rainey. He was a dentist. And the lady in the middle was my grandmother, Mary Jane Smart Webster, and my mother, Vida Webster Smart Rainey.
That's in front of your house.
In Stockton in 1943. We had been at the Air Force Base up there for a year and a half, and Tom was being sent overseas. The girl handing him the gift is, oh my gosh, all of a sudden. Anyway, just
a very dear friend.
A very dear friend, and isn't that strange? I just can't remember her name. And we just got a notice that she had kept in touch with us all these years, and just 2 months ago she passed away. And that's me over to the side with Tom. But it was Mary and her mother, Vida Rainey.
In the backyard of Blick's.
Yeah, my mother's backyard in Blick Street, North Hollywood. This was taken in Rexburg, Idaho, and your dad had his little bow tie on and his new boots. He had some kangaroo boots and his cowboy hat. And that's when we used to go to Idaho to farm for 6 months each year.
Okay.
This is grandfather and grandmother Webster's house in Rexburg, Idaho. And we stayed there one summer before we bought our house in Rexburg for the summer months that we were there. Tom's dad had a limousine service, and this is one of his cars, and he always had just absolutely beautiful cars that were right up to date. And this was one in, I don't know, early 1920s, maybe even before that time. And this is an interesting photo. Tom is on the left, and his cousin Milt is second from the right. These four boys lived on the same street, and they all were taking violin lessons. And this was in 1924. He was just 7 years old. Now, who the little girl is, I don't know. But what is interesting about this violin, they didn't take lessons too long, but his mother had the violin for years, and then years later she gave it to us. And then years later we gave it to Rich. And then I just found out a couple of months ago that he sold the violin for how much?
$1,500.
$1,500. And I don't imagine at the time they paid over, if they paid $15, that would have fortune at that time. But anyway, that's the picture. I had never really seen this picture before that I know of. And there he is with his violin. Now, Hattie Cassidy, Tom's mother, is in the middle. She was a beautiful young lady and really quite ahead of her time. She was a secretary, and she also was very athletic. And at that time, most women were not. And she played volleyball and seemed to have a great time. Here they are with their, I guess, just rolled their skirts up, but they're out there in the pond someplace. And this was also in New York. This is the Murset's home, their first home in Los Angeles, at 1149 Locke Avenue. This is where he lived when I first met him. But now that little car in the driveway, that looks like quite an antique car. And his aunt and uncle lived right next door. For practically all their lives, there were just the two brothers in that family.
And the aunt and uncle's names?
And the aunt and uncle's names were Dora and John Murset. Now, if you want to take a trip, this is a trip, the car that they came, their final trip, they had come to California a couple of times before that, but strictly on business. And this was when they were moving. And the cars used to have a running board, and you put your luggage on this running board. Well, you can see they got in mud up to the hubcaps. How they ever got out, I have no idea, but they originally got to California finally, so they must have got out some way or other. Now, this is the Murset family. There's Betty and Fred and Tom and his mother Hattie and their faithful dog Buddy. This is the four generations. There's Nanette, my mother, Vida, my grandmother, Mary Jane Webster, and myself. I look terrible, but that's me. I must have been having a hard time getting over I don't know what, but I look terrible. Anyway, that 1939, we'd taken a trip to Idaho, and this is my grandfather Webster and myself and my grandmother Mary Jane Webster. And my grandfather was a state senator from Idaho. And my great-grandfather, his father, was also a state senator from Idaho. And their photos are in Boise,
State Capitol building?
the state capitol building.
That again, Mom.
He was also one of the founders of Ricks College in Rexburg, and was also in one of the first state presidencies up there in Madison County. Murset down on right by the Biltmore Hotel in California. And he was one of the very few that had a limousine business that had a permit to park on the street and wait for customers. And had we known what was going to come in the future years, he never would have sold his permit, his franchise. He would have kept it and maybe been Hertz or Budget or one of the big car companies. But anyway, that's Fred Murset with one of his cars in front of the Biltmore Hotel. Now this is Hattie and Fred Murset on their honeymoon. Fred loved to hunt, and there were just the two brothers. He had this brother John. So he and his brother John got together, and they had a double wedding, and they went on their honeymoon together on the hunting trip.
Is that an outhouse in the back?
And I think that's the outhouse in the back. So you can see it wasn't at the Biltmore or the Sheraton where they went in a tent on this double honeymoon. So that's quite something, I think. This is my mother, Vida Rainey, and my brother, Bill, William Webster Rainey. And I just love that picture. I think it's just such a pretty thing. And so it had to be taken in about, he must have been maybe 6 months old, so it would have been taken in 1916. This is a four-generation picture. Fred Murset, Grandpa Murset, Emil, Nanette, and Tom Murset. And this is a picture of Tom Murset with our two oldest children, Nanette and Bill. And it was taken up in Idaho. where we spent 6 months each year for 10 years. Here's glamorous Mary Murset with her firstborn, Nanette. And it looks like Nanette was about maybe 6 months old or so. So that would be in 1947. This was Tom and Mary Murset's first house, 4622 Buffalo Avenue, Sherman Oaks. We bought the land, we drew up the plans, we subcontracted the house, and we built it. We loved it. We lived there for 58 years. And besides that, we did all the painting outside and inside and did all the landscaping. This was taken in, let's see, Rich, our baby, looks like he's about 6 or 8 months old. And so he was born in 1956. And so Nanette is 9 years older than he, and Bill is 7 years older than he. And this is by our Christmas tree. I think this is a cute picture of the two boys and their dad sitting on the couch watching them read the Sunday newspaper. This was at Rich's birthday party, and these are all little neighborhood kids. And as you can see, he's got his hot log Cassidy Bill on with these sharpshooters hanging down to the side.
That's Bill.
Oh, excuse me, did I say Rich? It's Bill's birthday. And how old do you think he was? See? We made a mistake. It's Nanette's birthday party. So it was in March. And it's still the same group of kids because we had a whole bunch of kids in the neighborhood. They all played together and had a wonderful time. This is up in Idaho at my uncle. Anyway, my uncle's around. I'll think of his name in a minute. And this is Nanette and Bill and my cousin's little boy, Teddy Lou's son. This is Nanette and Bill. And that was a little navy blue velvet dress that she had. And 3 of her cousins had a little dress just like that. And when my mother and dad went to Hawaii, they all wore little dresses like this. And we went down to the ship to see them off as they went to Hawaii. This is Mary Murset again. And we had daughters and we got pioneer lunch and dinner. And we were to bring something from our relatives, our ancestors. Now this is a beaded black cape. And my grandmother, Mary Jane Webster, wore this. She always had elegant clothes. And the skirt is a black lace skirt. And I fell heir to these things, how I don't know, but I did. And so that's what this is. And she used to wear this to their elegant parties when they were up at at Boise, Idaho, to the political affairs. Here's your glamour girl again. In case you don't know, this is Mary. And it was up at Lake Arrowhead. And we were taking pin-up shots for our boyfriends. This is before Tom and I got married. But our folks used to rent a cabin up there for several years. And so my brother was never home during the summer. He was up in Idaho. So my sister and I, we got to take our boyfriends up there with us. My mother and dad, of course, went along as chaperones. And then we'd take 2 or 3 other friends, and we just had great times up there at Arrowhead, California. This picture was taken, I imagine, about 1940, before I got married. And it was over at our house on 3471 Eagle Street in Los Angeles, California. This was my high school graduation picture. And this little gold football that I have on a chain was given to me by my boyfriend. And he later went up to Stanford and played on the football team up there. But he also got a scholarship for an electrical engineer. And one night someone broke into our house and stole my gold football. So that was the end of my football. But anyway, that was my graduation picture from high school.
What high school?
Roosevelt High School in Los Angeles, California. This is me down at the beach, and this was 1944. The Pacific Palisades at Santa Monica. This is where we always go swimming, right down here, below those Pacific Palisades. And it's just a great place to go to the beach and holds many, many wonderful memories. This is our daughter, Nanette Murset Nelson. And this was, again, with her little black navy blue velvet dress. And this is Nanette smelling the flowers. And you notice the radio in the back. And then you'll also notice this table. This table was made especially for me. I used to work at Los Angeles Furniture Company. And when I was getting ready to leave there as a wedding gift, this man had this table especially made for me. And the glass company gave me the beautiful shelves, the glass shelves. And we had that table. I've used it in our house for years and years. And I gave it to Nanette, and she used it in her home for years and years. And right now I think it's stored. It'll get in somebody else's home before too long. And that I just think is a darling picture.
There's that rocker. Where did that rocker come from?
And I got this rocking chair through the company, and we still have that rocking chair, only now it's in black vinyl. It's covered in black vinyl, but it's been a wonderful, big, great, huge rocking chair. And Grandpa sat in it for years and years, but now he sits on the couch and holds my hand. We finally got together after 58 years. This was taken in our snowstorm, and we had about 4 inches of snow in that storm in Sherman Oaks. And as you can see, Nanette's about 2 years old, and she was out in her little red outfit that her mother had knit for her with her hat and her little sweater. And also had little pants to go with it. All this I knit with my own little hands. And that was quite some start because we haven't had snow since that time. And here we are on one of the little bikes we had. And I think we had that bike for years. All the little grandkids rode on it. The kids in the neighborhood rode on it. And it went a million miles. And I think that's a cute picture too. And as you can see, she's got a Band-Aid on her leg. She must have had a little owie. This picture was taken in our backyard. And it shows Nanette with her first child, Mark Nelson. And we took a lot of pictures that day of all of us. And most of them came out real good. I think that's a nice picture. This was taken in our backyard. This is Bill. And as you can see, the same old trusty tricycle. And as you can see, we had been in our yard too long because the fence is new and there's no shrubbery growing along it. No, isn't this you?
That's Bill.
That's Bill. This is Bill. It was in Studio City. The Arpayas had a birthday party for Anthony. And this is why we were there. They were riding on the little cars down to Studio City.
Probably for Michael.
I think it was for Michael. Anthony's 2 years older than Rich.
Didn't he?
So I can't tell whether Bill or Rich.
Well, one's a cat. Bill's the other one, though. I think that's at your folks' house. Isn't that one in the bedroom?
This is at my folks' house, and this is Bill with Inky, our cat Inky. And this bedroom set I also got at LA Prairie Furniture Company, and I got them for just practically nothing. They practically gave them to me. So we've had these bedroom sets. I think we had 4 altogether that I bought, and so we have one that we're still using in our house, a beautiful poster bed in our bedroom. And my mother had a set that she used for years. And who ended up with that?
We had bunk beds. Are those bunk beds?
So no, we got those.
Oh.
Anyway, we've had this furniture that's gone around the family from different ones of us, so we've all used it.
That's Bill.
This is Bill. I'm glad Rich is here to tell me. Sometimes I can't tell from these old folks unless Nanette's with him whether it's Bill or Rich. Anyway, it looks like he's got his goggles on, ready to take off on his plane. This was in Idaho, and you can see it's a birthday party. And these were kids that all played together and had a wonderful time. We'd all go to the show together on Saturday afternoon. It cost us, I think, a dime apiece. And we'd all go marching off downtown on Saturday afternoon to go to the show. Here we are, still in Idaho, and is this say when he was just baptized at this time?
Well, it's the summer he was baptized.
So it was the summer that Bill was baptized. He was baptized in Vicksburg at the Tabernacle. And it looks like somebody has a field of corn growing. It was certainly not my corn. I planted corn once, and I planted it so close together that the corn only grew on one side of the cob. So that took care of my gardening. Here's a picture of Rich in his little push cart that his mother took him for a ride around the block in on our front porch in Sherman Oaks. And as you can see, he's about maybe not more than 6 months old, so it would be 1956. And this is you just getting ready to go on your mission, isn't it?
That could be.
And leaving for BYU. Oh, that's when you were going to school.
That was after my mission.
Yeah. Ah! This was Rich Murset after he got home from his mission. He was only home practically maybe 2 weeks before he left for BYU to go to school. And this was his mother in her beautiful silk dress that was it weighed about 2 ounces. Here is Rich Murset. He's about 13 months old, and he's giving his best girlfriend a call on the phone.
It's a cordless phone.
A cordless phone. He was ahead of his time. This is Rich with his catfish. This is how he'd come in to watch TV with us and have his head on that pillow like that all the time, or something just about like it. And anyway, isn't that cute? This is Tom with his 3rd child, his 2nd son. This is Richard Thomas Murset. And as you can see, he's not very old. He looks like maybe 10 days old, if that. And that's taken on our chaise lounge out by our back door in our house on Buffalo Avenue. This is taken in our den in Sherman Oaks. And that's a 4th-generation picture. It's my grandmother, Mary Jane Spark Webster, myself, and Rich Thomas Murset, and my mother, Peter Webster Rainey. And that oak table we got up in Idaho. And we still have that table, and we have books about a foot high on it. And I just love that table. Well, when we went up to Idaho, I wanted one, but I saw it in the paper. It was for sale. Somebody was selling this old table. So we called up and I asked how much they wanted. They said they wanted $15. So I said, okay, we'll be right over. So when we went over, they said, well, we don't want to sell it for $15. We want $25 for it. And I said, and so they really couldn't do anything but, I bought this in Idaho, Rexburg. So they gave me the table, this beautiful oak table, for $15. And there were 4 leaves, beautiful oak leaf tables. It makes into a huge, big dining room table. But of course, we took it and cut off the pedestal so that we could have it as a coffee table. And now it would be worth, well, if you could get one for $300, you'd be real lucky. Anyway, we sure have enjoyed that table. It's a great thing to put your feet on while you're watching television. This is Grandpa Emil Murset, Hattie Murset, Tom's mother, and Tom. And here he was home on leave from...
Oops.
This is up at Arrowhead. The one on the right is West Sherrard. The one on the left is West Sherrard. He's my sister, Dean, who is next. That was her boyfriend. They went together forever, but they didn't ever get married. Then there's myself, and then there's Tom. And we used to double date a lot, and we had a great time together. Here's Grandpa and Grandpa Murset with their 3 grandchildren, Nanette, Bill, and Rich.
West again.
Here's the foursome again, West Sherrard, my sister Dean, myself, and Tom. This was just after we had gotten married.
About that one.
That's a picture of my mother and dad, Vita, and his name is David William, but everybody called him Will. And that was taken in their backyard. This is Tom when he was 1 year old in 1918. It must have been back in Buffalo. And who the other person is, I have no idea. This is one of the Murset car from Los Angeles to Reno. Why they were going to Reno is that they had a lady from Buffalo who wanted to get a divorce from her husband. And at that time, it took a year or two to get a divorce in New York. And in Reno, you could get one in 6 weeks. So a lot of people all over the United States used to come to Nevada, Reno, Nevada, to get their divorce. And so this is how they happened to be going on their way to Reno, is to take this lady, and then they stayed there for 6 weeks until she got her divorce, and then they went back to Buffalo, New York. That was a picture of me when I was 9 months old. And it's the only picture I have of being a baby. My mother just didn't take pictures. Now, luckily, Tom's mother took lots of pictures of him. But that, I think, is just darling. And look at my head of hair. When I was born, the night that I was born, they actually gave me a Dutch cut because my hair hung down in my eyes. And they took me all over the hospital showing me off because I was such a beautiful baby. That's what my mother said. This is my brother Bill in my grandmother's rose garden in Salt Lake City. She lived on Butler Avenue, and it was just across the street from the University of Utah. And so ever since when in fact, I was there when I first learned to walk. I took my first steps in that house on Butler Avenue. And when I went to kindergarten, I went to the University of Utah, right across the street, because they had a kindergarten class for the students to practice with the kindergarten children. So that's where I started my school, at the University of Utah. But ever since I saw that rose garden, I've always loved roses. And so whenever I look at my rose garden, I think of my grandmother's rose garden. This is my mother down at Santa Monica. I don't know what year. We were just little kids, I guess, when we went down there, but it must have been in the winter because it looks like she has her coat on and all wrapped up. And the other people back on the corner that you can see, they all have their heavy coats on too. But that's all I know about that picture. This is my dad, Will Rainey, and it looks like he was all dressed up, sharp as a tack, ready to go somewhere. And he even has his hat in his hand. Now this is one of the few pictures that we have of us children when we were little. It was on the 4th of July, and as you can see, I have a costume on that had a big bow in the back. And I had been on a float on the 4th of July parade. This is my dad and my mother and my brother Bill and my sister Dean. Her name really is Emma Dean, but she hates Emma, so she goes by the name just of Dean. It was in 1924. It was just before we left to come to California. And the reason we came to California is because it was so cold in Utah. I used to get gathered ears, and at that time they had no penicillin. And so when you would get infection in your ear, you would just have to draw together like a boil. And then it would burst, and then the pus actually would just run out of your ear. And that is one of the reasons, of course, why I have hearing problems now, is because of that. But that was in Helper, Utah, and we left there and came to California. So here I am in my little costume that I wore on the float.
Oh, that's pretty.
Isn't that cute? So I was 6 years old at that time. Because it was me on the left and my cousin Teddy Lou Webster on the right. We're just 4 years difference in age. I was born on the 3rd of October in 1917, and she was born on the 7th of October.
You mean 4 days?
4 days, did I say 4? Oh, anyway, it's 4 days difference in our age. Now this is a picture of myself on the left and my brother Bill And who the other young man is, I have no idea who he is. But brother has all of the laces up the high tops. This is a picture taken up in Idaho. Here's my cousin Frank, my brother Bill, my sister Dean. The next one I don't know who it is. And then there's myself and my cousin Teddy Lou, and I don't know who is sitting on the ground. This was up on the farm also, as you can tell. Yeah, there's Bill and my sister Dean and myself. And in the background is a water wagon. And they would have to haul water. And one time, it was only a couple years after this, that my brother, this Bill, was driving this great big thing, this water wagon. And they hit a bump and he fell off. And he was run over by one of the wheels. And the good Lord must have been watching over him because it didn't kill him and it didn't break any bones. And it was really a scary affair. This was my birthday party in Helper, Utah. I must have been 6. And my sister is in the first row, and I'm riding back of her. And the other kids, I have no idea who they were that came to the birthday party. This is a picture of the Webster cousins. In the front row is the girls. It's Mariana, Teddy Lou, myself, and my sister Dean. And in the back is Louis and Frank and my cousin Bill, my brother Bill, and my cousin Chet. And these 3 others belong to my Elmo. I can't remember what their names are. But all of those boys, every one of those boys are dead now. And Mariana just died, so the 3 of us girls are still living. This was taken at my grandmother and grandfather's 50th wedding anniversary. My sister Dean is in the front. My grandmother's right behind her. My grandfather's to the left. Their oldest son Jim is with a hat on. Brother Bill's next to him. My cousin Tom is to the right. Usually along those like this, I usually were just coming to my wrist. But you always dressed up, and I hated hats, but everybody wore a hat, so I had to wear a hat. But anyway, as you can see, we were all dressed up ready to go to church. This is a postcard to Lou Anna. They called her Anna Cassidy.
It's not Laura?
No. This was Grandma Murset's brother, and he was writing to his wife. This is my Aunt Lucille Webster Howe. I was in 1916, and she was my mother's only sister. This was taken in approximately 1951. It's Nanette riding the bike and Bill ahead of her. This is the picture of my mother and dad, Vida, and Will Rainey, with Nanette and Bill as a tiny baby. This is Emil, Tom's grandfather. He lived to be, I think, 92 years of age. And he came to America when he was about 18 and came all by himself. And we don't talk about his road sister because we never could find out anything, either from him or from Tom's dad. As you can see, our fancy trailer, but it seemed to serve the purpose. And that was our little Ford that before we were married, Tom was in the service and he let me use it. And it was a maroon when we first had it. And when he came home one time, I had it painted a kind of a turquoise green. And he said, what happened to my maroon car? So anyway, we had that little car. It was really nice. It was a sporty car. These are 2 of my favorite pictures. The one on the right, that little checkered dress, I made that for Nanette. And I also made one for her cousin Jackie and Tommy. And they looked really girly in those dresses. And that's Bill with her. That was one of our birthday parties. And the other one, Nanette was all dressed up in her little dancing outfit. They had put on a little recital. Time is running short, so I'm second from the left. And I was in New York City, and Tom had just gone overseas, and I went to visit some friends in New York. Tom and I had been invited to go to Las Vegas. This is at Lake Mead. And some friends of ours were getting married, and they asked us to come up and stand up with them. And so that's why we happened to be here on this little yacht. It belonged to the boss of the bride. This is Sophia Murset with her 2 grandsons, Tom on the left and Milton on the right. This is my brother Bill and my sister-in-law Helen Tolman, Rainey, and it was taken at their 50th wedding anniversary up in Salt Lake City. These are the 2 children of Emil and Hattie Murset, Tom Murset and Betty Robertson. Tom Murset, his sister Betty, Debbie Robertson, Rusty Robertson, their dad Jimmy, and their daughter Chelsea.
Kelsey.
This is Krista Fittinger, Lorene Stevens, Jack Rainey, and Bob Rainey, brothers and sisters. This is our daughter Nanette Nelson, second from the right, with Bob and Jack and Lorene and Krista. This is my sister Dean, Rainey Cave, with their 3 daughters, Polly, Jackie, and Lori.